All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and get this budget workshop started. We apologize for the being just a couple minutes behind, but anybody who is watching at home, you're welcome to come on up. We've got some seats and we've got some pizza, and we're going to try to keep an informal atmosphere here tonight so that we can discuss these projects. If the commission remembers, this is the continuation meeting from the night where we had an in-depth, extensive conversation about different revenue forms, different ideas, and what we had a palette to pursue and not pursue. We spent so much time talking about those issues that we did not get a chance to talk about the projects that have spurred those other conversations. So what we're going to try to maintain our focus on here tonight are 4 projects that this commission has pushed forward, discussed for the last 3 or 4 years. And at the end of last year, we gave our staff direction to go and do enough research, enough study to bring back hard numbers on what those projects would cost. So I want to remind the folks watching at home and ourselves that right now we have a continuation budget. It's balanced. I think there's actually a little bit of a surplus in it. None of these 4 projects are in that budget. None of these 4 projects necessarily are pressing. We could say yay, we could say nay across the board. But if we say yay, we also then have to figure out how do we pay. So the way I'd like to do this tonight, before we turn it over here to staff, is we're going to go through each project. At the end of each project, I'm just going to say, guys, what do we think about this project? Now, it's not saying you don't have to nod your head that you're paying. I just want to get some feedback on which projects we like, which projects we really think are positive projects for the city. And I'm just going to kind of keep a list here of which projects we all really like, which projects, well, I like that one, but that's kind of a want, not really a need. We could wait a few years for that kind of a thing. And then if, depending on time, when we get to the end and we say, okay, if we wanted to do all 4 of these projects, this is how much it would cost. And Dallas has a Excel sheet we can see in real time. If we pull this project out, what does that do to our numbers? And then we'll go from there. Okay, but at some point we need to be able to tell staff this project is going to be funded. Continue on, or put this project on the shelf. I also want to remind the commission that all of these projects are based on 20-year payouts. So I'm not sure how much good it does to say, well, we'll do one this year and one next year, because we'll be paying on them for 20 years. So we'll get to that when we get to the end of the night and we have those kinds of conversations. With that, did I miss anything? A summary of how we got here tonight and what's the goal tonight. What I would love for us at the end of this tonight is to say, this one is funded, we're going with it, put the other 3 away, or we love all 4 of them, staff, go figure out the best, most palatable way to pay for it and bring that back to us. I don't think we'll get a recommendation from staff about exactly how to pay for it. We need to tell them these are the 1, 2, 3, 4 that are funded, and that's how much money you need to go find us. Then we'll give them some time to come back and say this is what we think is the best, most palatable way to do that. All right, any questions? Mike, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And which also means that if when we go out and find ways to pay for it, we're not gonna be that committed to the project. We're not gonna spend a lot of money on those projects. So if we come back and these are the ways that we pay for projects and it still doesn't suit, then there's an off ramp there. So if you commit tonight, what you're doing is committing for staff to keep going and figuring out ways to fund it. There's no sense in us trying to find ways to fund projects that the commission really just isn't that interested in pursuing. So we have, just go through real quick, your handouts. You have the presentation handout. We'll go through that. And you're really going to like our pared down presentation tonight. They don't have that one. And we have 3 handouts for 3 of the 4 projects, the road projects. We don't have a handout for City Hall, but the mayor said, hey, we want to see big maps, and so I printed them large. It's also going to be on the overhead projector. So that will jump right into the presentation. This slide you will recognize just kind of where we are in the budget process. So we're at the end of end of July, getting ready to, we're in almost to the home stretch here, which would be September. Home stretch is September. That's right.
Is that the Furworth budget workshop, Mike?
Furworth. Yes. That's for those people.
It's in Southern Forest.
It's a Southern draw, people. Furworth budget workshop. Good catch. All right. So we're gonna skip the normal lead-in revenues and all those things. We're going to go straight to 4 projects, and these are they. So this is the first one we'll speak about is City Hall. It's the one you don't have any more handout than the presentation. We've had now 3 workshops on City Hall, possibly 4, but I remembered 3 when I was putting this together. And as you know, we're trying to combine staff from several facilities: City Hall, the Annex, Little Red Schoolhouse, and Public Works area. We have a current capacity of a little over 6,000 in those buildings, which is not the actual floor area of those buildings combined. Those are the office areas of those buildings combined. And then you'll see that we have a project need of 12,000 square feet. A little bit of a clarity from our last workshop, and frankly, I think our architect was a little confused. He was explaining that we were going to build 12,000 square feet new and renovate 3,100 square feet. That is not what we've been giving you cost on. We've been giving you cost on building 9,000 square feet new and renovating this building. So if we go to 12,000 square feet new, that'll give us a total of 15,000, which will be nice, but the price tag will go up. So our estimated cost was 2.75 to 3.5 million, and that was really taking the total square feet and multiplying it times what we know construction costs to be. We also know that in the last 6 months, construction costs have hit a real steep incline, but right now, prognosticators and experts aren't so sure they're not going to have a return to normalcy just as soon as we, as a world, return to normalcy from COVID. But we believe that with a price tag of $3.5 million, we can calculate that the annual debt service on that building would be $220,000. We didn't put the range in there. If it's less than $3.5 million, then the annual debt service will be less than that, and that is based on a 2.25% interest rate, which is conservative, and a 20-year debt service, which is also conservative. It'd be possible for the commission to consider a 25, 30-year debt service if we want to.
I question staff a lot at some point in this process about the square footage. How did we get to that? And they had some really good answers, but if anybody else has those questions, at 9,000 square feet of new, that means each floor of the new building would be bigger by 1,400 square feet than what we're working with right now. Is there anyone who is wanting to have a conversation about a 15? Because the architect did have that confused the other night.
He did.
And he confused me.
We went to 19 and 20,000 the other night. He had all kinds of.
Yeah.
It
Well,
would be 19, 20.
Yeah.
All right. The way that staff is proposing is that we would build 9,000 square feet, would be phase 1. That would be a footprint of 4,500 or 5,000 square feet, 2 stories. So we'd get 9,000 usable square feet, a 2-story building, so we're taking up 4,500, 5,000 square feet. The build out would be something very similar, connected. It wouldn't be 2 buildings. That once we built the second phase of it, it would look like it was originally constructed as 1 building.
So how many square feet are we utilizing now per year?
6,100, a little more than 6,100.
9,000 really isn't that much of
Well, it's 12,000 total when you get, once we renovate this. So
Correct.
9,000 new, we renovate this 3,100. That's where I think the architect they're
Got it.
going around 12, because we'll have 12,000 total with
Correct.
this building and the new building.
But what we were talking about tonight, this won't be used for city business, it'll be used for like the tax collector, sheriff department, or something
It-
of that nature.
It could be. It could be. When we get into detailed design and we say, hey, you got 12,000 square foot to work with and these are the things you have to have, one of the things that's on our list is, the commission has told us in the past, is not the top priority to have commission office space, but it'd be nice if we could get it. So when we were having that conversation, then we talked about whether we could get anybody else in the building, as would be nice as well. But I think we all recognize we got to have someplace for the finance department and the building department, and we'll get started on those, and then we'll see what size commission chambers we think we need, and then we'll start trying to space in what would be the second tier of priorities. You know, do we have 6 office spaces for elected officials? And I know that everybody I've talked to says, we don't think we need it. Everybody that builds it says, oh, I use it a lot more than I ever thought that I would. So just to encourage you guys not to shoot it down completely.
Where's the recreation department looking at it out of these?
There, we would continue to anticipate that the recreation department would work out of Easton. And
I think that with the way the city's growing, that this is gonna be some sort of city department. We just had a presentation on employee, how many employees you need per population. What was, at our current capacity, Meyer Dallas, how many employees should we have at City Hall right now at our population? If that, but for the level of service, because obviously it's all about how much service.
If you moved all of the current employees we have into City Hall that will be moving in City Hall, I believe it's 24. That does not include the fact that we're understaffed where we should be. I think we're understaffed by, is it 6, 9?
Yeah.
So if we were staffed at the benchmark level, we'd have 30 employees in City Hall today. At our 10-year plan, based off our staffing plan, we'll have 35 employees working in City Hall on the low side.
And let's just say that Newberry continues to be understaffed, but we can also continue to grow.
Mhm.
How long does a total 12,000 square feet of office space, how long until we're topped out at that? And if our population continues to grow?
Mr. Mayor, we haven't put together a correlation of staff people per square foot of City Hall. Our thinking is that 12,000 square foot got us somewhere out there to 15 to 20 years. Best, there's a little bit of scientific in that wild ass guess.
Right.
I just want to know that 9,000 or 12,000 is even adequate enough to accommodate
It-
what's coming.
Well, and we've got,
I mean, it's okay for starting off.
right, and we've got the plans for the next 9,000 square foot that would then be connected with 2 stories.
So how many total feet, once it's all phased out, how many total feet are you talking about?
That would be 21,000.
21,000.
And what I think, correct me if I'm wrong, what I believe what we're planning on is going ahead and doing the engineering design for both of those,
Mhm.
only pulling the trigger on one building, but then when it's ready, we don't have to go back and do all of this kind of stuff again. It's just, okay, we've got those architectural plans, pull the trigger, build phase 2.
That sound right to you, Mr. Jones?
Is there any timeline on when these, if we have to build, or architectural plans be good till we want to?
My estimation is that, if they get to be more than 5 years old, you dust them off and you have the architect look at them again, but you don't pay a 100% fee again. You just make sure that they're up to code. Code changes every 3 or so years. But I built a water plant that was 35 years old. They designed the whole thing and they did a couple phases, and then here I came along and we needed to add a few processes, and we grabbed the plans out, dusted them off, and kept going.
And I also want to just bring everyone's attention, at the end of every one of these projects, you'll see the annual debt service cost, because I'm guilty of this too. You tell me it's $3.5 million in that sticker shock. I said, well, we don't have $10 million just in the bank. So to do any of these, you're talking about some sort of debt service. So keep that 220 in your brain, right? Say, okay, in order to move on this, that's what I got to come up with every year.
Do you give me the kind of depreciation line?
In your governmental side of the world, we don't accumulate depreciation and bank it like we do in your utilities.
But when we get an impact, we will come back to that thought. Any other questions on City Hall? Comfortable with square footage? Can I get this has been the most popular and seemingly the most pressing of these projects so far. Can I get a head nod on, are we still, this one's coming, we gotta get started on it? Ask one more question as you think about that. Now, if we said today, yes, when would the first debt service payment, when we have the first year we would start paying?
Mr. Mayor, we would, after this meeting, start working on the revenue that would be needed to make the debt service. So we would start bringing you back those options of, the impact fees or water tax or millage to increase. The first debt service payment would not be due for 18 months, 2 years. It'd be similar to a construction type loan where we would take draws, and then our first debt service payment would be due after we completed the project. So it would be quite some time down the road. In the meantime, when we started collecting those new revenues, we would bank those into a capital improvement fund. So when we got to the end, we'd either have a substantial down payment to make, or we'd already have funds available to start making those debt service payments. But it would be a few years down the road.
So, again, this is not a binding contract, I just need a head nod.
Let me ask one more.
Is the, what we're tonight, but once we pull the trigger, isn't there something in the budget we're gonna spend a couple $100,000 to start the architectural? Is that included in this debt service?
Mr.
That's
Mayor.
out of this budget?
Mr. Mayor, if you remember from our audit presentation a few months back, we do have surplus reserves above the commission's fund balance policy. Staff's recommendation in your budget is spending those surplus reserves on the design. So it is funded in your budget, but it's coming out of your reserves that are over and above your emergency reserves. So to answer your question, no, it's not in this debt service, but it's paid for out of savings.
When we think about these projects, and I'd say this is probably true across the board on all of them, right? It's 18 months to 24 months before you have to start paying from the moment we say we're going to go. So if we say we'll put it on a shelf, right, and then we come back to it in a year or 2 years or 3 years, it's going to be another 2 years from that day. So when we think about getting behind the ball, like we did on the fire station, I think it's because people keep saying, well, we can't do that. We got to kick it down the road. Now, we probably will have to kick some of these down the road, right? I'm not saying that. But it's a long, drawn-out process from the moment we make up our minds. So I just want to make sure we're all remembering that, too, because if we kick it too far and now we're in a bind and say, well, we need to build City Hall, well, from the moment we make up our mind, you're still 2 years away and maybe 3 years away from construction. So I just want to keep that in our timeline. So again, nothing binding. How many of us are really excited about this project and would like to find a way to make this move on through?
This would be my number one choice.
Thank you for speaking up. I was about to say, well, pull it out. I got a number one. Anybody else is excited moving on through? Keep on.
Here again,
It's not binding. I just need to know how
And
it's,
for we got some other stuff here that I'm better suited for in my
Right.
mentality. I ask that it's where the funds come from, so we don't take something away or have to raise taxes.
and we're going to get there. all my question is right now is how excited.
Would I like to see
how
it?
much do you
Yes.
think? Okay. would
Am
I
I
like
going
to
to
see
vote
it?
on it right now?
I'm not asking
Next
for a
week?
vote right now.
Okay.
I'm asking how much do you think this needs to happen, if it can happen, and we'll have the if it can happen question
Okay.
later, right? So I got a head nod, head nod. That's 3 and 1. Yeah, okay, all right. So
Yeah.
let's go.
I don't know if it's, I'm not sure it's my number one priority, but.
Okay,
No, it ain't number one. But we're just
I'm
saying.
not asking number one.
Right.
I'm
We're
not
just
asking
getting-
ranking. I'm just
Thank you,
saying.
Monty, for starting that.
Yeah, and I'm gonna do this to us at the end, because we keep
No.
for some of these, we're going on 5 years having these conversations, and we can never move it,
Yep.
because no one ever wants to reach for the mic and says, we gotta move this forward, right?
Okay.
So, at some point, I either wanna tell staff, they don't wanna do this, stop bringing it back, or they do wanna do this, so I'm gonna push you guys tonight to give us some decisions, so we can start moving forward, or just put it in the rear view and leave it back, right?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I have 3 then.
I have 3 as yes, 1 is number 1, and 1 is however you want to mark it, on your paper. All right, Mike, take us to project number 2.
Unpaved roads and urban cores. The handout that you have is 8.5 by 11. We've seen this several times, so I won't spend much time on it. The map shows all of the road segments in our urban core that are unpaved. The table behind it indicates that there's a construction value, estimated construction value of 1.35 million to construct that, and the annual debt service on that would be 85,000. That really is something that would match. That's 20 foot of paving, crowned, and some swales. We're not getting sophisticated, no curb, gutter, sidewalk. That is just trying to get a drivable surface down on these streets.
And this is the project that we had believed we would be a pretty sure thing for a grant that would take care of most of it, and that has not panned out.
Our advisors are telling us it hasn't panned out. And just so you know, we intend to submit for the grant. The grant cycle is next spring. So we closed out our one CDBG grant, and the next cycle comes open next spring, and we're going to make a submission if we can get funding. You know, the 50 to 75% of the cost, that's great. But if you can't, the worst case scenario is we think it's 1.35.
And is there another grant that we think we would have a better opportunity to go after for this? Because the problem with these roads, most of our philosophy when it comes to paving roads is we wait for a developer to come in and we share the cost, or we push the cost of the road to them. But these are all in our urban core. A developer coming in and making that partnership is probably unlikely. So is there anything else, any other hope that we're not going to have to do this eventually ourselves?
Mr. Mayor, we are of course looking at every grant opportunity we can for this section of town. A few weeks ago, our grant consultant and I drove these roads to look at them to see what opportunities they are. So we're looking for what's out there. There's a potential you may be able to use your American Rescue Plan or ARPA money on these roads. But as it is now, there's no grant out there that says, yeah, absolutely, that's a surefire thing. But we're definitely looking and applying for whatever we can.
Okay. Tim?
So this page has annual payment of 62 grand, but it's a 30-year. This has an 85. Is that because that's a 20? Yeah. Okay. And how about the impact of the CRA on this section? Is that a factor?
That lies within the CRA, so it would be plausible that if the county agrees to the CRA, that it would be a project that we could bond, take debt service out through the CRA. The CRA wouldn't generate enough money in the first few years to make an annual debt service of $85,000, but it would be an eligible project.
What was the total CRA amount we were even talking about? What did Brian say?
2.1.
Yeah, between 2 and 3 million. 20 years. even better. Thank you,
And
Jan.
again, guys, what I'm hoping is we get what the projects, then we turn to staff and we say, okay, at a next agenda meeting, come back with all the different ways that we could fund it, right? All the different ways we could pay for it. And then we could say, okay, this project is eligible with CRA, this project is eligible with impact fees, those kinds of things. Jamie?
I would just also point out that the second bullet there, just for
Okay, so our utility director is talking about the 1,900 foot, 0.4 miles in CSX right of way, and what is just the fact that we have to work with them to be able,
it's effectively being used as a street, but it's not technically.
not technically a street.
It's not technically city-controlled right-of-way. I would tell you that in my experience, there's plenty of these paved streets and plenty of CSX right-of-way. I don't think they necessarily object. If you go build a house in the right-of-way, I think they object. But they're currently being used as streets. If we paved them, we would be, there's a small risk to the city that they'd say, hey, you can't do that, take it up. But since I see, no, that's, if you ask CSX permission, the answer is absolutely no. But like I said, even most of the city's streets that are in CSX right away today, no one ever asked permission. My hometown, every streets are 2 feet from the railroad right away.
Well, guy, and if you remember, 18 months ago when we first brought forth these 3 projects, we had a 4th one added. It started because we were so frustrated with the level of complaints about roads, and we were just pave all the roads. That got a little unwieldy, right? And so we reduced it down to pave the roads in the urban core. And at that meeting, we presented that one first because that had the most support among the commission. And in that workshop, City Hall expansion overtook it, and you guys supported that one more than the paved roads one. So we change our evolution as we talk about this as well. I think when we talk about paving roads in the urban core, this one we have a lot of flexibility with, because we could say, do this section, and we don't have to do all of these. Some of these little segments that are kind of spread out around, maybe they get dropped from the map. Maybe we pull the trigger on one of them, but not try to pull the trigger on all of them. Again, I want to try to keep project first, and then if we like the project, then we talk about payment, and if we don't like the ways to pay it, then we drop the project. We certainly could break this one up, right? We could break this one up and just say we're going to do this much. When we get to the how do we pay for it, there may be some advantages in bundling these projects together when you go out and get the debt service, so that you got one debt service payment and you're using it to pay multiple things. So I want you to keep that in the back of your mind too. Any questions about $85,000 a year and we could pave every road in our urban core? Tim?
And these numbers are depicting everything in red, right? Not just what's in the boxes?
Right. Hang on one second before we go to next. Any more questions on unpaved roads? Can I get how many want to move forward with paving these roads? Okay, so I got 3 people that want this project to move forward. This is your on this one? Okay, I got 3 yeses and an on this one. I'm gonna go over there. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna go see what Miss Judy is using for here in a minute. Check minus.
Starting with a question mark, but I'm checking ones that are.
Okay, thank you. All right. Well, right now we got 3 and an on both, so we're moving forward. Okay, downtown connectivity, right? We all know the population growth, the problems with getting everyone to flow in Newberry right now. Mike, you gonna take us through?
Absolutely. The handout for this one looks like that. We've discussed this one 3 or 4 times in different meetings. This would be a connector Initially, it was planned to go from Northwest First Avenue to Southwest 15th, first along Seaboard Drive, and then connecting with Southwest 10th, I believe. Yeah, Southwest 10th Street. In the meantime, DOT has agreed to pick up the segment between Northwest First and West Newberry Road, so that if we like this project, that's going to save a portion of the cost. So that left us with the two segments. We broke it down as a segment between Newberry Road and 5th Avenue that is kind of Seaboard lane and looks a little more commercial. And then the final segment is more in residential, and then extends from 5th down to 15th. Ignore any of the stuff that looks like development north of the roadway. That's an artist's renderings, but it's not part of the work scope. If you look up on the screen, you see that I tried to help you ignore all that by making it go away. But that is the scope that you see up on the screen. It would be that piece along Seaboard Drive until we get to 10th Avenue. I don't know the name. Is Arrowhead neighborhood, where Commissioner Fort lives, and we would pop out on 15th. Staff, I believe that this is one of the best early morning reliefs for State Road 45. We have a lot of traffic now that drops off at the elementary school and has to go to work in Gainesville, and currently they're either coming through 255th and we're getting a lot of complaints, or they're trying to navigate State Road 45 and getting caught up with the Oakview traffic. This would give us one more north-south corridor between 15th and West University Avenue. I think it would move more than 1/3 of the traffic. I think it'd probably pick up a little bit bigger share. We would design it so there's not any stop signs, but that it's got traffic calming along, so that it's still going to be a leisurely 25 to 35 mile an hour pace, 25 to 30. We're not looking for anybody to get up to high speeds. That northern segment, where we're more in a commercial district, would be expanded with parking and sidewalks to accommodate our downtown festivals that we currently have there anyway. But it would have more amenities, underground power, water, sewer, sidewalks, and a rail trail that one day, when we're flush with cash, we might extend all the way down to Champions. So you can see the segment 1 there on the screen is the piece that DOT's picking up. So we've omitted that from our total cost. The final two segments are one's 1,700 feet and one's a little over 1,000 feet. Total price tag, roadway and utilities, is $3.5 million. We break them out simply because different funding sources. The roadway segment piece would be $2.6 million, and the utility segment is estimated about $900,000. Any questions?
Where's segment 2, Mike, on your arrow there? Segment 2 is what?
Let me see if I can. Right here, segment 2 begins here. We kind of transition from 5th Avenue here going back this way.
Three is all the way down to Champion?
No, sir. 3 is all the way down to 15th. We would run down to the Arrowhead neighborhood, which is kind of a U-shaped street. Dallas will.
Okay.
Here's the Arrowhead Subdivision.
Okay.
So this is an existing street. We couldn't stay along the railroad track, because when you get here, having an intersection this close to the railroad track is an absolute deal killer for CSX. Okay. So we were going to hop off the railroad right away and pop out here on 10th to give us enough distance from the railroad right away.
And Mike, are we doing any upgrades to 10th there to make it, because right now it's a pretty narrow, very residential
Mr. Mayor,
road.
We want it to remain, what we've intended for that is sidewalks and parallel parking and new driveway aprons. in addition to fresh asphalt, street lighting.
You know, for me, in terms of economic development, downtown revitalization, flow of traffic, this one is you know, a very, very attractive project. It also, besides for City Hall, has the highest price tag. I think that what we're seeing in Newberry is that developers are saying, well, the downtown area, I'm in the historic district, it's a struggle, so it's just better for me to go out and build a town center, and I'll build my own little downtown area, or a Sandia Park, and I'll build my downtown area out there. I think something like this could, you know, help with walking traffic, can help with, you know, a lot of those types of issues, and really encourage some businesses to come back downtown. Thoughts? Well, it's connecting downtown, and that section right when you turn in, like off of Newberry Road, and you get back behind where the parking lot is, that's where I think you could have a little L-shaped walking kind of flow, and you would be able to get from either side of town. You'd be able to get there with the road.
The property where the curve is,
Yes.
the houses on both sides of that street, is that going to require any eminent domain
No, sir.
to?
Our evaluation is that the Seaboard Coastline right-of-way connects with the city street right-of-way. Require a little section in the road, but we don't have to acquire right-of-way from anyone. You can see the little green area there just south of that intersection.
Right.
That's not city-owned, but it was kind of left to a common area or an HOA when there is no HOA, so we actually probably could get a hold of that, but it's not, it wouldn't require eminent domain because no one person owns it.
Jamie?
On that curve there at 10th and 251st, I believe that is, back north to 7th Avenue, we already have the utility easement, some utilities located there.
Okay. Mr. Jones is saying for the record that we already have a utility easement on a fair piece of that section that is under discussion right now.
Okay, so there's already kind of a road that goes directly into 15th.
Correct. It's
But
gated.
that's not the one you're going to.
No, sir, it's gated. We would want the driving surface to be as far away from CSX Railroad as we could. We would also have to erect a chain link fence between the sidewalks and the railroad tracks, which would be attractive to CSX. They don't like pedestrian traffic cutting through there, and while we wouldn't guarantee the chain link fence would stop it, it would curtail it. But this would be nice. I mean, it would be sidewalks. It wouldn't be running down that up and down. Pedestrians or motor vehicles wouldn't get particularly close to railroad tracks.
Well, if I lived on either side of that 10th Street there, I am not so sure I'd be wanting a bunch of cars going through my neighborhood like that, but I don't know that that's a very good plan. And we have to be kind of careful. I don't want us to make this look like we're trying to help one individual to develop his property.
And I'm sensitive to that as well, but if that's the stance, then we can take off a couple of these projects, because everything we do in the city of Newberry helps somebody. You know what I mean? And there's about 3 or 4 different property owners down that section that this could potentially help. And I think all of the businesses where Country Kitchen used to be, they've looked at these plans. They were really excited about it. I think that any potential business down there that sees this plan, I haven't had one that said, I don't think that would help. To a T, everyone looks at this map and says, wow, if we could have this, that would really revitalize this entire area. So it's really just about, to me, and my only concern on this project besides the price tag is the same concern you have, was the segment of 10th Street, which is why I asked, would we improve that road, widen it up, maybe put some curbs on it, sidewalk, so that it looks like it was intended to be a street that gets you to another street, not just a cutout into a neighborhood.
What's the potential for the future use of anybody that's bordering this segment of turning their property into commercial? Just like we would do on the twin pairs, down the road, would there be?
It's a good idea.
There's a couple, and I can't see, this is a bad map, but I can't see the exact yard lines and all, but say if 4 or 5, 6 or 8, 10 of these got together, they could potentially all come in commercial together and bulldoze the whole thing down. You'd have businesses. I mean, is this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if the community wants to go that way.
That's what I'm just asking. Could it be done?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, if one came in and they're kind of in the middle of the
Right.
pack and it's
No.
everything else is residential, staff may not support it.
No.
But I would absolutely tell you that everything north of Fifth, right now, most of that is already zoned industrial. So rezoning it commercial would be downrating it. But staff would support that because it's really a better location for commercial than industrial. And so everything to the north, going south, it would be, kind of what's the flavor of the neighborhood and how do we want to see that develop? Right now, our thinking is that if it stays residential, we'd like to transition the road into something that looks residential. And so that we're not trying to have high-speed traffic through there.
Right.
And my anticipation is right now the bulk of the traffic is going through 255th and State Road 45. It should lessen what's going through 255th, but I don't anticipate that this would be more than 255th is today. There's no reason for it to be more than 255th is today.
255th, Mike?
It's the one that right across the street here from City Hall. That street that goes down by Newberry High School.
Yeah.
Currently, that's the only way really for that traffic to pop out to 26, and so this would be an alternative route. So the thought is that some percentage would take this route, some percentage would stay on 255th.
What about this cul-de-sac in that subdivision? Will that be punched out and come into here?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I don't know that there's a house in that in that grid that hasn't complained to me about the high school traffic and the people cutting through the neighborhoods trying to get out. At the beginning of the school year, it's weekly. By the end of the school year, it's back to being weekly.
What are you talking about, 255th?
255th, all of these little legs. They'll take 255th and they'll come down by the library. They'll come down. I can't see it either. Fifth. They come through. So all of those become little mini racetracks as soon as the bell rings.
I mean, if somebody's coming out of Newberry Elementary School, I don't see why they would drive and wait in traffic to come down to this road to turn left. Why wouldn't they still stay on 255? Because it's right there by the elementary school.
If you're coming,
They can, because they can
They can just.
get out onto Newberry closer to the light.
or
Instead of having to wait to get out here, they can get out
Yeah, I
of.
know, but I mean, they can come down 255th and do that now.
And Mr. Mayor, I'd also point out that, we had some robust discussion about Countryway South with 40 new homes connecting into Countryway. And would that be congestion on 15th? And the answer is, well, it won't make 15th any better. But those folks right now, when they come out, they typically, if they're not going to one of the schools, they either go to 255th or State Road 45. Now, if they're not going to school, maybe they just go straight across the street down 10th, pop on out to 26th and avoid the two streets that go by schools, which would be 255th and State Road 45.
So is it a problem whenever school's out? Whenever school's not in session, is it a problem? Is 255th a problem?
We don't get complaints
45?
on 255th or 245 when we're not in school that I'm aware of.
So it's 6 months out of the year.
No, sir, 9 months.
Well, you've got to teacher holidays and.
Well, Agreed,
Yeah,
180
yeah,
days.
yeah, we-
180 days out of the year, you're right.
I mean, you know.
You can
and-
work for staff with those types of statistics.
The last project that we have on, I'm gonna make this point, but, you know, we have the opportunity with this project to kind of create a nice grid that goes all the way around and really allows for the flow, right? But
You won't be part of this discussion on the last
you're not,
one? Okay.
yeah, you're not, you voted on it. You're not, I'm forgetting the word,
Mr. Mayor.
gaining yourself. Tim?
Yeah, this probably is the project that I like, among the top ones that I like, from the connectivity standpoint, from the traffic easement standpoint. The only question I have, is there some cost savings and maybe not putting in all these spaces down here? They're gonna be so far removed from anything. You know, I don't know if we necessarily need to,
You're talking about down there.
the southern part of this road.
And the answer is absolutely. We're in conceptual, trying to share a vision. If we get into design and that's unnecessary, we think it's unwarranted, or we just want to save money,
Okay.
won't happen.
You're talking about down there.
This down here.
In other words, if you did do that, though, it should be a dead end road.
No, just not the street parking, not the street parking.
Oh, the street part.
The road, yes, the street parking, no.
There's no need to,
I mean, between that and the last one, I think from a practical standpoint, you know, leaving the elementary school and not having to go all the way back out here to come over to 337 is, I think we get a lot of value out of those.
so you're gonna ask for.
Okay. Any other questions on this as a project, just about where it would come out? Certainly all of these sort of design elements, there's gonna be a whole lot of other opportunities as we move forward to get in deep dive of those, right? And the annual debt service, 220 for this one, I've heard one,
Only, we'll end up putting new, asphalt down from one end to the other.
Correct.
That's correct.
okay? Monty, and Mark? How excited are you to connect 15 to 26? So excited he
I'd like to
can't
see
even
where we
speak.
could, I mean, it's like anything, I think it's a great project, it's a lot of money,
Yeah.
and maybe it ain't as expensive as we think, if we get really fine tuned, maybe it's more we kill.
Okay.
But I'm just looking at all the numbers of what costs what, and
Right. Okay. So I got two number ones, one that likes the project, and an and.
I'm not ready to kill it.
All right.
I mean, I think I think if we could get this just a functional,
Street.
I mean, it doesn't need to look like Town of Tioga down through here, with all the flash, but just a functional roadway through there with street parking, I think is probably doable.
Okay.
Is Pat, is it, someone spoken to Pat again on this, is it nothing that, he's still on board, or you think, to do some development if we get this?
Oh, I think that he would certainly be willing to work to bring something down
Yeah.
there. And in my brain, a lot of these projects, I try to think what has the potential to increase our tax base and pay us back for the initial investment, right? That's kind of what this whole thing is about. And I believe this project, over the course of 20 years, 30 years, pays for itself in those potential developments, taxes, we take, what is abandoned warehouses and parking lots, and we bring in vibrant businesses, coffee shop, whatever they are. And now we've done something that's gonna return our money to us. All right, moving on. I got a lot of slides on this one. We've already, a lot of pieces of paper.
Yeah,
We're ready to go.
we rolled
Then I
right through
just
And
try to turn the page.
the last project that we're gonna speak to is, in this handout, is, was the extension of Southwest 15th Avenue.
Hang on 1 second, Mike. I should say, just in terms of fairness, the first three projects, they're all, some commissioner at some point in time pushed this idea forward, said, I'd like to see this, let's work on it. This one kind of, and so the first three came out over a long period of time of conversations. This one came out as an opportunity that jumped up in front of us about a year ago. So it has made it into the list because it's fairly easy to see how important it could be for us. But I just, in terms of transparency, I want to make sure we know the first three projects, they came from one of you guys at some point in time over the last few years. That's how they got to the table. This one came because it was an opportunity that was presented to us. Yeah. Okay. This one?
This one,
All right.
this one came from,
Yeah.
from
This one
staff.
came from,
We've
yeah.
been,
This is the Coleman property
we've
right
been,
there.
that's correct. We've been asked by the commission over time to make sure we're doing some master planning for infrastructure, and this came out of that. We're currently actively negotiating with the Colemans to acquire this land. We've got an agreement in concept, and as you know, the devil's in the details. I have a big stack of contracts here behind me that'll go to the Colemans to acquire the right-of-way, whether the commission wants to move on it or not. The way that the contracts are worded is that we would extend a water main through there. It's been in our CIP for 10 years before I got here. So we'd put the water main in there. If we get the water main in there within 3 years, then we will have a 75-foot road right-of-way to do something about immediately or to wait. But we will have road right-of-way. If the water main doesn't move forward for whatever reason, then after 3 years, we would return the deeds to the Colemans. That's
But
some.
would the developer come in there and
That's
develop that, would we pay part of it?
that's been my intent when I was trying to acquire the right of way. The value of the dirt that we're proposing to get, a 70-foot wide swath through 1,700 feet of dirt, we calculated what that's worth, and the water main's worth about 3 or 4 times that. So it makes the value of the property higher to put the water main in there. So that justifies why we're not offering to pay for the land. The contract says we'll build a water main. It doesn't say we'll build a road. It doesn't preclude us from building a road, but it doesn't require the city to commission. My thinking was, if we have a road right away, we have a lot of acres of land, and there's water, sewer, and electric utilities available. It becomes fairly developable, and the commission may wait and let whoever acquires the land put the road in on top of the water main.
Do we own the utility as far as electric is concerned in that area?
That is not in our territory, but we have one of our major feeder circuits, our South Circuit, goes down that way, and it's under it'll be rebuilt in our CIP in the near future. We would probably reroute it to go through this area to get over to 15th Avenue. But currently this is in Central Florida's electric territory, if I'm correct. Am I right about that, Jamie?
yeah.
Part of it is, okay. But we have a water main project. There's actually a project that should have moved forward 2 years ago, but we did the extension out to DCC. This was, and this one got pushed back for 2 years, but Jamie's got a proposal from an engineer who's ready to design a water main for us, and we're deciding if we get this, it's our preferred route. If we don't get the the right-of-way from the Colemans, then we'll use another route through existing road or right-of-way. It's just not as advantageous to us.
You know, I think on this project that, that's gonna be some of the most valuable and, attractive place to develop, put in a subdivision right there by the high school and the elementary school, 2-minute drive to the middle school. All it needs is the road. If there's a road there, some developer's gonna wanna come in and, so I think we could get that segment. I think we could get a developer to come in on that, you know. It's just about timing, you know, how long that would take.
I think we definitely need to go ahead and acquire the property
And that part is
if
done.
possible.
The acquisition, well, he's got the contract behind him.
Right, and do we have funds for that already, or?
We're not going to pay for it. We're trading
That's right.
a water main installation on the project, or that's what we proposed, and the answer was we'll do that, draw up a contract. And so the contracts are now drawn up. Hopefully, everybody's still in the mood to move forward with it.
And whenever a developer comes in there, then they would have to pay part of that water main?
No.
Nope, would
No,
they
sir.
have to pay for sewer?
They would, if we don't put it in.
And the road.
The water main is part of a looping project that the commission endorsed back before me and Jamie got here, I think '07 or '08. The idea was we needed to build a 12-inch water main loop around the city. Yeah, you were here.
That
So
was your idea.
We've mostly gotten around the city. The next leg is to go from the cemetery to County Road 337 and back up to 26. That's the next leg of this looping project that, I mean, when I got here, we were out by Hitchcock's and coming through Doc Corellis Drive, and then we went down 15th, and we were out of water for a 24-hour period. That was a long day. And so we got it down to the cemetery. This is the next leg.
So will the water run all the way to 337?
It would,
Jamie?
and back up to 26.
Mr. Jones?
Personally think as far as the rebuild of the road, once that right of way is acquired and the road is built, it would be more to alleviate traffic issues on 15th Avenue than anything else.
My only concern is, you know, I would love to wait for a developer to put the road in, but I think once there's an open space there, folks are gonna start driving there anyway. So,
Here's the deal. The deal is, they're gonna take a left there and go down to 337 and take a right where they can shoot ahead toward Gainesville and stay in the right lane,
yeah.
not having to cross the track. This right here is my number 2.
And we do, it's not as much, but we do have people that just need to go west in the morning. And right now, they've got to either weave through the neighborhoods, or they got to come out and go all the way back around. So I agree with Mr. Jones. I think that this project here is, you know, is going to do a whole lot more to alleviate. And if we couple Project 3 with Project 4, we have created a square grid around our downtown area, and I can get in that and go anywhere I need to go on a street that with no stop signs, those kind of things, gets me in and out. And again, I think this one is, Mike, you know, again, correct me if I'm wrong, this one, you know, what we're proposing here is a pretty broad idea of repaving the road, adding some parking in the elementary school along the street there, which is generally a problem a few times a year, and making the connection. This could be scaled back where we wait for that third segment 3 for a developer to come in. I think if a developer is watching this and knows that we're thinking about this, then that may happen sooner than later.
Well, hopefully not for the impact fees.
6 months. 6 months.
And as you all know now, that's zoned ag. They can't get through a land use change and a rezoning change before you can put impact fees, and we collect impact fees when they pull building permits. So we have plenty of time to make this deal happen and still get impact fees in place. I think from a, you know, we talk about development. We want infill. We want compact development. This is the most desirable property that is very compact. No one's making a utility extension really to get there. It's a rock's throw from a wastewater plant. The only reason it hadn't developed is because of lack of road access, or that the property owners were just happy keeping cattle on it, and now they're thinking that they might be willing to let go of some property to see it get rezoned for residential.
Our sewer plant will kill this, Mike?
I don't think it'll kill it. I think there's closer residential. I will promise you that as we are looking at expanding our wastewater plant, we're being very careful about buffering and making sure that we don't get too much residential right up against our wastewater plant. But I think there's plenty of available acreage in this area that wouldn't be as close to our treatment plant as Countryway. Thank you, Jamie.
And part of the way that you handle the advanced treatment is with the wetlands, which is generally fairly attractive, and it helps with the odor, you know. Tim?
Which one of those properties is on the P and Z for development on Monday night? Which one of those corners?
P and Z for Monday night.
I have that packet but it's sitting on my desk at the house. You know, Jamie?
There's a parcel on the west side of 337 that's posted that may be on the PNG. I know there are one that's on that.
Can you look?
I know the P and Z has one from JV Pro on one of these corners of 15th Avenue and 337 Monday night.
Who?
That would be
It's-
Monday night to the west.
It's,
County Road 337, Southwest 266.
Where all the woods are,
yes.
on the left, going into the private 15th on the left?
It's on the southwest corner?
Yes, where the
Southwest
private road where they just put the asphalt roads, I believe.
Okay.
It's full single.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
So Commissioner Maison, the way we've been kind of handling this tonight, you came in right at pretty much as we began the conversation on this project. All I'm trying to get out of the commission at this point, nothing binding, is just are we, you know, how much do we like this project? We think it would be important for the town. We haven't talked about money, we haven't talked about funding, we haven't got, but if we have a project and everyone says, I don't really think that one's important, right? Then we're just gonna yank it off because I'm trying to push us towards movement on some of these, because some of these projects have been kind of laying around out there for some number of years. So head nods, how many think that this would be an important one if we can figure out funding to move forward on? Okay, I got likes. Anybody on this side of the table like it?
I like it.
Okay, I like it, I like it.
It's number one for me.
Okay.
Just another point about traffic is going to the elementary school, there's a bottleneck that comes into 255th, even from over here on the north side of 26, that, I mean, there's a lot of houses back there, and none of these people can get on a bus. So they're all bottlenecking down here and coming down. If they could go around this way, I think it would be very advantageous for them, and probably a lot safer for the kids crossing that have a lot less cars to deal with, or the crossing guard has a lot less cars to deal with potentially.
Okay, so by my tally in my head, and Miss Judy and Dallas, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, connectivity between Newberry Road and 15th, and the 15th connectivity have elevated as the most important to the majority of the board. Okay?
We're taking those two, taking the first two that we think are the most important, and that we're going to.
Well, we can't vote in workshops.
Well,
That's why I've been acting. Yeah. So that's why is how many think that those two are your top two projects? If you had to pick, and we'll look at the numbers for all of them here in a second. Oh, nice, right? So for the downtown connector and 15th, who was the A on 15th? I thought everyone was a.
I have,
Anyone the A
oh, I'm
on
sorry, I got
15th?
this backwards.
Oh,
This was an F.
and this was a.
3 and 4.
Okay.
I put X's on my sheets.
Okay. Is that? Wait, this is informal. Let's just talk.
I'm just saying, for me,
Right.
as we go through these, and not to put, down the other two is not important, but 15th would be a good one that I say, for me, is number one, and the downtown unpaved road is two, to fund those. That's just mine. And then, downtown connectors 3, and City Hall 4.
Okay.
First 50. There again, where do we get the money?
Well,
But
let's,
some of the roads on the downtown unpaved could be granted.
well, and
So we could.
we have
come back
CRA money that can be used for downtown connectors
Yeah.
and the connector between 15th and Newberry. Are we in the CRA on the other side for the 15th connector?
No.
337? No. So there's two of these projects. And again, that's why right now I just want to talk about the projects, because when we get into funding, we've got all kind of different ways that we can go to fund it, and it kind of comes out of different pockets, it comes out of different pots. But I want to tell staff, these are the projects the commission's really excited about. We want to fund those for sure, right?
I'm excited about them all, but where are we gonna get the money? That's the money.
Yeah, you just keep trying to jump ahead of me in the conversation, all right? So is it fair to say, I've heard, Mark gave us a list. Anybody else want to just give us a list, 1, 2, 3, 4, or, okay, Monty?
Number one for me would be City Hall, number two would be 15th, number three would be Downtown Connector, and number four would be Downtown Roads.
Okay,
Commissioner Clark, can you give me your list again? I'll put it on the screen.
I was saying, for me, it was, 15th extension was number one, getting our downtown paved was 2, down, basically in reverse order, downtown connector, 3, and then City Hall.
okay.
You just sitting here,
I mean, we don't, anybody else got a list that you want to give us of, Ricky?
Downtown connector number 1, 15th number 2, City Hall number 3, downtown roads number 4.
Okay. Tim, you got a list, or you don't have a list in your brain like that?
I was thumbing through to get to the page, but I think it was actually mirrored what Commissioner Coleman said. And we may be able to just do, the whole thing with the unpaved downtown roads is, to me, it's kind of just cosmetic. Whereas the other two bump up on my priority list because they serve a functional long-term purpose. And so I'd probably, the downtown connector and the 15th Avenue extension are kind of equal. And then 3 would be City Hall and downtown unpaved roads, which is the cheapest of the project, so there's potential we could try to maybe do that another time.
The downtown roads, we thought we were going to get this grant, we were going to be able to do it. But if you look at the map, and don't go back to the map, but if you've got it on your at Unias, there are a whole bunch of little segments, right?
Yeah.
So in my mind,
I feel like we could pick
it's
those
possible
a little bit
we
here,
just
a little bit there.
clip one off here or there as we go with gas tax, little CRA money here, maybe we pick the long one and we do that one piece, and then that way we get the process started, but we don't try, because I would say in practice, if we were to say to the contractor, we're going to pave all of those roads, there, it's going to be a multi-year process where they're going and they're doing this little segment, this little segment, this little segment. So in my mind, that's one that we can bite this one off in a different way. It's on our brains. We're thinking about it. But yeah, every 2 or 3 years we do a little section here. And that's kind of how we've been doing the downtown pavement anyway. We did a little section over here a year ago, right? And we've just been, as the gas tax builds up, we say we're going to do this one, then we say we're going to do another one. I know you haven't seen the presentation in full. Do you want to give us a list? Have you been thinking about these?
I'll give you a list, yeah. I'd say City Hall is 1.
Okay.
Newberry, where it comes from. Thank you so much, Timothy. Yeah, it's all right.
He's supposed to be sharing.
In our new city hall, we want the share.
Yeah, City Hall number one, because it's, the plaza and all, I think it'll bring more people here. Then I think number two should be, downtown connector, Seaboard Drive, correct? Yeah, because that's gonna brighten that up, more traction. Then I think number three should be 15.5, and then downtown roads should be number 4. Because I figure, honestly, with impact fees, I think we could take care of that.
Okay, so take us to the funding, and I'm gonna say, when you go over to the funding slide, go ahead, do your
Golf scores win, so.
Real, before we go, how about the chief? What do you do about the unpaved roads, chief? Anything that hurts y'all when you try to get in or out, or?
Not really, there's some that are in the northwest part of the city that are sometimes problematic, but not problematic to the point that we can't.
I don't think some of these subdivisions you have to go through would be more of a problem.
Subdivisions down through park, there's a problem.
Yeah.
You should know that too, huh? One of the things I want to ask is, if we don't have a city hall, and we're hiring all these people, and we're having all this development, where are these people going to be working out of?
I mean, I think you're making a good point, Mike. I have the same, if we don't do City Hall now, when are we gonna do it,
I agree.
kind of a thing.
I was thinking about portables,
Like
just like the school board does.
We-
I think it's- man,
Same thing here. That's what we were just decided.
So it's
Front
low
line.
score wins, right? So it is 15th, downtown connector, and City Hall would be the top 3 that we would like to move forward. Before I just take the downtown roads off our plate to think about, anybody want to make an appeal for downtown roads? Otherwise, I'm gonna ask Dallas, just peel that off, and we're gonna do the downtown roads a little bit here, a little bit there as we do.
And we'll continue to look for grants.
And we'll continue to look for grants and all that kind of stuff.
I'll take it off for that, I'll take the appeal off, and we're gonna do it in chunks to get it done.
And, Mr. Mayor,
Then if you're talking about it 5 years from now, I thought we'd already, doing this on the last budget cycle, we were gonna get this done, now we're.
Well, the way we've been
I know,
doing it
I know.
is little one,
Let's-
so what we could do is ask Jamie to put them on a rank.
Let's try to
Yeah.
put it in the budget, or get a piece peeled off at a time,
Right.
and I'll
Yep.
good with it. For me,
Mr.
Ain't
Mayor,
speaking for the other guys, the old people.
with regards to the downtown roads project, I tell you that since the first time you saw that list, one of those unpaved roads has been peeled off. Typically, we are resurfacing our existing paved roads, but Jamie got a really good opportunity, and the road, it was Southwest 4th Avenue, just about 4 blocks south of us here. We took one off the list. We'll continue to look for those opportunities.
Okay.
Program design and survey, and we go to do the annual resurfacing every year.
On the downtown,
Tag one as a add alternate, this way we live in the way, if you like.
Okay. I think we're ready to go to the, so what Dallas has here for us is the projects that are there, separated into different segments. The total cost, if we were to do, and you've got downtown roads gone, so you're down to, 9,800,000, right? Annualized, we'd have to come up with 529, right? And then the utilities, which again comes out of different buckets, right? Comes out of a different funding source, is another 71. So, I think the question.
Sorry, I thought we were going to,
I think the question that we need to have now, we'll go back to the 5, we need to have that number written in our brain. How much money, if we want to move forward,
530.
530. Will you go back, take, just for the sake of it, take City Hall off.
Now, let me ask, if you do all 3 segments on the 15th at one time, is that what you're thinking?
Yes.
Or is it gonna be segments?
city commission's call. Whatever you guys ask us to do.
They've broken it, you know, it occurs to me that on 15, you don't have to do anything on 15 except pave the connector in between, and you don't really have to do that either.
Break each segment, I don't remember seeing the segment.
On
I
15,
missed it, okay, I see, that's the amount of footage we're gonna pave.
we'd repave as these curb gutter sidewalks.
Well, and I tried to find logical breaks. The piece from 255th to 45, currently, what I'm saying is just new asphalt and redo the swales and add a sidewalk to the other side. Not a lot to do there. And realign the intersection at State Road 45 for our soon-to-be roundabout. The second segment, again, there's not a lot to do with the
Roundabout.
the asphalt. If you miss a meeting,
Say that again?
Um,
Roundabout.
Yeah, I remember that.
2 meetings ago, the commission asked me to ask FDOT to be open-minded about a roundabout at 45.
45.
Yeah. So, but the second segment there is from 255th to 260th. It goes adjacent to Newberry Elementary School and then to the track. We have a lot of parking, so the principal benefit in that segment is it would be to add on-street parking for both the track and the elementary school. And then the third segment there is from the cemetery at 260th through, and that's brand new road, but I didn't propose any street parking. It's sidewalk one side, new asphalt, new swales, and street lighting. Oh, and wastewater. We put wastewater in there. The water system will already be there, or is already, at least it's already funded through our CIP. So 3 different segments there, and the commission could pick and choose or could do them all.
Okay. Can you go back to the amortized amount slide, that one there? How come when you took out City Hall, how come it costed?
It's at 310 now?
But the overall cost is
It only does annualized.
Oh, okay, so if you take City Hall out and you just move forward on 15 and the connector, we're at 310. Okay, so what staff has done at this point, and that you can put City Hall back in now, I need to know this, you know. So what City Hall's done is made some assumptions about some ways that we could go through. What I would like you guys to give staff feedback on is what are you willing to entertain and what, don't even bring it back because we're not raising 1/10 of a millage rate to do any of this, right? So don't bring me any millage. I'm willing to entertain a utility tax, or I'm not willing to entertain a utility tax. Impact fees, like I want them to go back and say, okay, we want to do, the commission really wants to do these 3 projects. These 3 projects need $530,000. So staff, on another night, we're not going to get into this tonight because we'll be here all night long. Another night, present to us, this is how staff proposes that we break this thing up and pay for it.
Put
Right?
that back up there with the money, please, sir.
Some of the scenarios that I see, that we could do something in number one, we gotta figure out where this money comes from. But if you take out 250, you ain't got to pay segment 1 and segment 2 right away. But we do have to get segment 3 in.
But
That's our loop. That's our pavement.
yeah, see, and that's where I would say my hesitation.
Then we go that way.
Is
I was thinking that we should probably do that in reverse, because we don't have to do 1
Those
and 2 to
Right.
make it functional. But we need to do 3 to make it functional.
but segment 3
3 is the
is
one
the
that we
one
do
that
it
could
first.
get the developer to do.
We do 3 first, then 2. Miss,
We need a road there for the-
we need this Miss- road through here paved and done
Hang on
over
one
with.
second.
I just had a thought. We're going through an agreement with the property owners about conveying land. We could amend the contract to say, and the city will take you through a land use change and a rezoning for residential development. which then makes that land very developable. So that, that's something that's in our control, and you can't commit to rezone something ahead of time. But if that property were rezoned, and a developer didn't have to bear those costs, it would probably incentivize the developer to go ahead and move and go ahead and put that infrastructure in.
I mean, what you're talking about is, but see, I'm seeing it
Go ahead.
in reverse, because segment three normally would be what the developer would, that's the cost the developer would bear. So if we do segment three first, we're saying, we're gonna spend $650,000 or $700,000 with it, $650,000. Yeah, with the utilities would be, right? And normally the developer would pay that. So if you did segment 1 and 2 first, you buy time to potentially maybe get a developer to come in, and then the city would bear that $650,000 cost. 'Cause, what we've told every developer for all these dirt roads is, guys, you can build your subdivision there, but you gotta pave the road for your development back.
I understand. Is there an underlying something that ain't being said? Because what we're asking is to do the water loop and get the thing cut through there. Is that the purpose, or we?
That's what the purpose, that's what it started out as, is we could get that, we could get the easements, right?
Get the easement?
And then one day down the road, we put a road in, right? Now we have all this congestion on 15, we thought, well, it'd be nice to go ahead and put the road in,
Sure.
right? And I'm not saying we shouldn't, because I think you put the road in terms of use.
Would the impact fees or anything like that help us get our payback on it? Or, I mean, do we know that something's coming, we're gonna wait 2 years and they pave it? Or are we gonna wait 5 years and we don't know?
I don't think that we know. I think it's a highly attractive piece
It's
of land.
very highly attractive. There's already talk around
If you-
Scuttlebutt already.
Right, if you do the rezoning, and we know that you can get a road and connection and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's why, I would hate to say we bear a $650,000 cost, and 8 months from now, someone comes in and says, yeah, I'm gonna put a subdivision there, thanks for paving the road. Mr. Jones, and then Commissioner. Right. So we'll do, and I don't think anyone's talking about not doing that part, right? I think what we're talking about is whether or not we should be doing section 3, or should we wait a little bit, work on some other sections, and see if we get somebody, a developer, to help out with section 3. Hang on, Commissioner.
Well,
Mason.
go ahead.
I mean, that's all you got.
That's all I got.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, well, I'm gonna play chess here for a little bit, because it's 15-5, and the school board was here talking about expanding the school. Who owns that property right across from the elementary school, where the ponies are at and where the horses are? The school does. Okay, so I was talking to a resident, and he was like talking about how. Because I think when she was here, the superintendent was talking about going up instead of going out because there's no property. So what if they decided to, they would have to go over that road, to buy that property and build going out. Then that 15th Ave, the money that we're talking about spending to upgrade that would be a waste.
You're on the wrong end.
I didn't follow. What are they?
You're on the wrong end. We're talking 15 to 337.
This is the elementary school, right?
He's changing the conversation.
Yeah.
To segment 2.
And to your point, we discussed that.
He's saying here.
We kind of have a plan
Middle
for
school.
elementary
The elementary school.
to make that
Or
property,
middle.
which the school board already owns,
You're talking about-
to make it parking for the elementary.
Oh,
school.
okay.
And then where their parking is, they could build buildings.
And on that property.
On their existing property.
Okay.
If they relocate their parking across the street, then you don't have to worry about moving kids back and forth during the day.
Okay.
You park, you walk across the street, you do all your schooling on the south side of the street.
On the south
You go
side.
back.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've had those communications with both the superintendent and their staff.
Okay.
But
Okay,
You
yeah.
got me?
On the elementary.
Yes.
I got a
Yeah,
question.
on the high school, they got plenty of property behind the high school, all the way up to the track.
Yeah. High school fine.
Now, since segment 1 and segment 2 are already paid, what are we paying money for? Are we planning on repaving it?
Resurface,
Why?
sidewalk. Well, and that's I have 2 thoughts on 15. right?
We got
One-
roads that aren't paved, we got this one's already paved, why don't we pave the roads that
Well,
aren't
I think
paved?
segment one, we're gonna have to do some work, cause we need to straighten out 15th going across. So I think segment one has some other reasons we need to do some, I don't know that we need to do the entire segment there, but we gotta do something around that intersection. But the flip side of my thought on this is we could do segment one and segment two, buy some time, see if a developer comes in to put in segment three, or we can not do segment one or segment two. The city can just go ahead and jump off and do segment three to get the utility, right, of having the road that connects, and we just deal with the existing road as it is, and we just go on about it, right?
I think I preferred putting the utilities and stuff in segment three, not worry about segment one and segment two, I mean, it's already paved. And then, and go that way.
Seal too, not too bad, pavement.
Jamie?
As much as I want
Not
to see
really.
segment rebuilt, says you have to put the gravity sewer down and that for its purpose. As part of that, if it's potentially going to be residential development north or south of that road, it has to be platted to know where the taps come to hit, or you have to come back and tell the road to fill in.
I mean, if you
I
look
think
up at
Castle
this,
Heights is already platted.
Yeah,
That's
if
on
you
the
look
north
at the
side of it,
screen,
isn't
it's going right in the middle.
it? Oh, okay. Castle
So are
Heights is
you
already.
proposing that we do segment three?
I think segment three has the most things that the school.
Okay, then I
It's the section I'd like to see personally built the most. I just want to make sure regardless of who does it, that the sewer is figured for, so you don't have to redo anything.
I will agree
I
100%.
can-
There ain't nothing worse than paving that's brand new getting torn up, cause
Yeah.
it never rains.
agree.
okay, if you look up at the screen, even with, if you take out segment one and segment two of 15, even with City Hall in, we're down to an annualized cost of, 425, which I think with the impact fee, we have a pretty good shot at getting there, right? Remember, with segment one and segment two in, we were looking at 530, right? So I've given you my two ways of looking at it. Either we start with segment one and two, and we kind of wait and see if the developer can come in and pay for segment three, which I think is a high probability. Or we could skip segment one and segment two. The city can just go ahead and bear the cost of putting that road in to get the connection, to get the usefulness of being able to get people out. Some developer will thank us greatly for bearing that cost for him or her, right? Say, that was very generous of the city of Newberry, now I'm gonna make even more money, right?
I don't know, depending on the impact fee.
Let me, Mr. Mayor,
Uh-huh.
so let's just say we hypothetically say go to three.
Right.
2 months down the line, we know somebody's coming there to buy the Coleman property. We ain't paved it yet. We can back out of that.
I mean,
They're gonna have to do it.
that's a fair
And we
point.
take the money back out of that and do segment one and two. Same as, we're doing a lot of hypothetical and kind of
Right.
worrying more than we are the downtown roads we can chip away at. This thing, there's already somebody looking at this.
Well, I mean, you're right. Again, it's like conversation we had about City Hall. If we said, Mike, full steam ahead on these three projects, we're still 18 to 24 months away from having to make, there's plenty of opportunity for us. What we
change.
can't do, guys, and I only say this because we've had this in the past, where what we can't do is we can't say, move forward on City Hall, we want it done, and then when staff brings us back the impact fee that we're planning on paying for it, then we say, yeah, but I'm not voting on that. And then we say, well, wait a minute, you voted on the project, and this was how we said we were gonna pay for it. So whatever we say we wanna do, we have to stay consistent, because it's gonna take us, 6 months to do the impact fee. We can't do all that and then say, well, I don't want the impact fees, right? So whatever we agree to do, we have to remember it's gonna take us a year to get all these ordinances and fees and all that structure in place. Whatever we say we wanna go for, we gotta see it through to the end.
You wanna throw up the numbers,
So
and
let's
let's
throw
see how
up,
we get money,
let's
and
throw
then
up the numbers of some assumptions that we've made. and we're coming up on our hour and a half mark, so if anybody needs to just take a break. Dallas, you wanna take us through this slide? And again, guys, this isn't set in stone. Nobody get upset. Nobody say, I'm not, all right, this is just hypothetical. If the commission's willing to consider some of these things, this is what it would yield.
Yeah, there's, like the mayor said, giant asterisks and caveats to all of these numbers. The way we were thinking we could get to the 563 to fund the majority of the projects the commission wanted to was an increase in your solid waste fee of $1.55. That would affect every resident in the city of Newberry. There'd be a proportionate increase to your commercial accounts as well. That would bring us to $18 a month for solid waste, which is still the lowest solid waste rates in the area. That would generate about $45,000 a year. 10% water tax would be about $94,000 a year. In millage, we currently have about a $60,000 budget surplus from projects that have been eliminated. We would use that for the debt service. We're estimating on impact fees, you could collect about $220,000 a year. That's estimated based off of a $1,700 impact fee and 125 housing starts per year. And then the last row there, the other, is if the commission increased its millage rate to the 6.28 mills that you adopted as your preliminary millage on Monday, that would generate another $145,000. And then, like I said, that gets you to 563, and obviously we can lower or increase any of these fees to accomplish I believe currently the number you're looking for is 425. So
425 is segment. How did you get 425? Check out.
Check out segment 1 and 2.
Yeah, correct. I'm sorry.
Segment 1 and 2.
The 425 is doing City Hall, doing the full downtown connector, and then just doing segment 3 of Southwest 15th.
So how'd you get like 1,700 from the impact fee? That seems kind of low.
We just took a guess. We don't currently know what the impact fee would be. We have engaged a consultant, an expert in the area, who in the next month or so is going to come present to the commission to answer all of your questions and do a workshop on how impact fees work. But we just took a guess. We looked at some other communities and just went with 1,700 just as a what if.
Yeah, I mean, the county's getting 7,500. I think we should be getting something closer to that.
Well, Mr. Mayor, we already collect $4,500 in impact fees as well.
The county has it all broken up into different categories of impact fees, and then each impact fee goes to a different thing, and you can only spend that impact fee on certain things. So that's what we'll have to have another agenda item where someone presents that to us and says, here's the range of impact fees that are available to you, and after the study, they'll tell us you could go after X, Y, and Z, and you could go up to this amount. And so the $1,750 is kind of in my mind, if you had a $1,000 road impact, a $500 capital outlay impact, and a $250 public safety impact, right? You might be able to go up to a 1250 road, right? 750. Those are, and if you go back to the different revenue sources slide, Dallas, if you don't want to consider one, we'll take that amount out, and then you go up on something else, right?
And Mr. Mayor, we do have this based off of 20-year term. Obviously, if you extend the term, your annual debt service payment would go down. So, for example, if we added 5 years to this term, it lowers your debt service to $360 from $425. But obviously, in the long run, we all know that paying debt for longer ends up costing you more money, and we would never recommend that you take debt longer than the asset life is worth. So most of these assets are worth 30 years. So the most we would ever recommend you take debt out for is 30 years on these projects.
I believe as a city, we have a pretty good record of paying debts off early.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, that is correct.
So I mean, if we went for the 25-year, we could still pay extra on it. as more houses are being built, we're gonna be getting more income in from those houses, as far as tax revenue and stuff is concerned too, so.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct, and we can structure, we don't have to structure it, that's the same, we do a balloon payment or something along those lines and structure it along, for higher debt service in the end, and make sure that we don't face, any, early payment penalties in whatever debt we take out.
Right. Capital City Bank probably. Pretty good. Oh, that's right.
Hey, Mark.
Go, Natalie, did you wanna be on this slide, Mark, for your comment, or do you wanna be on the,
Yeah,
That's
the
So-
solid waste.
yeah?
So is this alive, when you punch in a number, it changes the whole money? Put in $2
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
on the,
And at $2, we're still under,
we're still
under our peers.
way under.
Yeah, I have a slide, I think, maybe that shows where our peers are, if the commission is interested.
Oh, I know what I was gonna say. What's the minimum houses we build? If we go with the impact fees and we got a debt payment, and we're really basing this on the city growing and all this, what's the least we have done, like when we had a downturn in the housing market? Does anybody know?
Mr. Mayor, it's been a while, I don't know. I know our three-year
Been a long-
average was, right at 120. For the last 3 years that was all, that does not account, for commercial equivalents. And we do have some commercial equivalents. Our projections going forward are all more than that. Our projections going forward are growing at, somewhere between 3% a year, something along those lines.
Let's just.
Agreed.
once
We are being
once
very
we borrow this
conservative.
money, we're locked in.
We are locked in.
We are locked in.
And
So
I'd
my
like to
point
base-
is,
Base it on the lowest that you have, and then if you make more,
right, we can
Pay
always
off the
pay
debt
the
early.
money, but
Correct.
I'm just saying if we had 75 a year, I mean, inflation's coming.
That's what I want to get at, that I don't want to be the Debbie Downer, but we're fixing to.
I'm just saying, I'm just
Well, I
asking a
think
question for,
we're
just to gather the money. We had 75 permits, I mean,
So that's the solid waste fee comparison right there. It shows where we are compared to everybody else.
Mr. Mayor, if you went to 75 homes a year, that would be where you ended up.
sure, it's too good to have that on.
And again, this doesn't include,
and then go back where you were, so 75 is 131 and 125, okay?
and again, we just took a guess at what the fee would be. So the commission might adopt more, might adopt less.
Okay.
And then here's your solid waste comparison. One of the things to note on this slide is ourselves and Trenton are the only entities in the area that offer twice-a-week pickup. So all these other ones, their fees are for once-a-week pickup with a similar-sized cart.
Okay. I'm good with that, man. We're good with good service, 2 times a week.
You can be happy you don't live in Gainesville.
I think you get a dumpster though, right?
Yeah.
That's what we get. We have a dumpster we get once a week too. He's talking about the little bigger than a little trash.
Yeah, the standard residential.
Uh,
We can
go back
upgrade
to-
you to twice a week though if you'd like. It's just twice the cost.
Go back to the, revenue slide now. Okay, and again, my question, guys, is if there's one of these categories that you're not willing to consider, speak now or forever hold your peace.
The village rate increase, I'm against it. I don't know about the rest, I'm just saying, why
Okay,
can't we go to a $2,500 impact fee?
Well, and we'll know more about the impact fee
Once we get the study?
when we get there. So, I mean, and again, guys, Dallas, tell me, let's say we pulled the trigger, we said, guys, we're gonna commit to figuring out how to pay a $425,000 debt service to do these 3 projects, right? We've got 6 months probably before we'll be able to decide on that impact fee and what the range is, and then we'll know what we gotta come up with, right? So I don't know that we have to increase the village this year, right, in order to get there, because we're not gonna be making many of these payments this year. So we'll know more of when we have the impact connection, 15 to Newberry Road connection, and City Hall, all three of those projects are directly related to Newberry's growth rate. The new people coming in, right? We wouldn't need to expand City Hall if the population of Newberry was 5,000 like it was before, and wasn't going to be 7,000, like it's headed. So it makes sense to me that the new folks coming in should bear the cost of those, or at least a disproportionate share of the cost of those improvements. Same thing for 15th. 15th never backed up when I was in elementary school. It was just fine, right? Back when there was 1,200 people in Newberry.
4 years ago.
Hang on.
In fact, when I was in elementary school.
So if we need more roads so people can flow, that makes sense to me, right? And just because nobody likes to ever say my preference here would be if we could do almost all of these off of the backs of impact fees. I'd like about 80% of that 425,000 to come from impact fees, and then we'll figure out that last 20% because there is some, everybody in Newberry will benefit. But we're playing in hypotheticals here right now. But if we tell staff we're moving forward with these three projects, then we got to have the backbone to stand up and figure out how to pay for them later on down the road.
How do we stand regarding like hookup fees for sewer and water and electric? How are we?
We stand in good stead, except that we have a $15 million advanced treatment facility we have to build. Which is why when we keep talking about the different pots, like we've got an $800,000 fire apparatus decision that we have to make, but also that's a different pot. So you got to remember that we've got different departments in this business that we run here, and they've all got their different revenue sources.
Mr. Mayor, to Commissioner Farnsworth's point, we're talking a lot about the general fund side. There is a utility fund side. Currently, it's at 55,000. Those development fees and our depreciation funds would be what we would pay that portion of the debt with. And then toward the mayor's point, we do have some bigger projects that we'll be discussing at our budget workshop on Tuesday for the utility side.
Well, Mr. Mayor, if we were to just, here, if we were to give MLK to a church, where would our savings be? What we save there, where would that be on this side?
Travis, do you have an idea about our annual?
I've got it right
80 to 100, 75, 80,000.
Mr. Mayor, if you were to eliminate MLK in its entirety, it would be, assuming you eliminated the staff that went along with it, about $70,000, and it'd be in the general fund side. The staff is 55,000 of the 70,000.
But I imagine it'd be absorbed through attrition. We have vacancies from time to time, we're adding staff.
I mean, so we could look at another $70,000, right?
No, because you keep the staff, that's 55,000. You got
Yeah,
15,000, 6.
It's going to open area that already funded anyhow, so we are kind of eliminating.
If we sold it to a daycare.
And you don't rehire. If she takes another job, you just don't rehire one of those other positions, that kind of thing.
So put another 70 on there, and let's see.
Well, and I don't know that we're ready to get into specifics of programming and those kinds of changes, but we can certainly say to staff, come back with a plan to get us to 425,000. And we want, we're willing to do the impact fees. We're willing to do a substantial impact fee.
Take off the increased millage.
Right? Anyone else? So the increased millage is the 6.2. 6.2. Is that what it is?
6.28.
We can
So
still pay
go
it.
back to the 5.99. I mean, now I got one commissioner say, everybody agree? No one's willing to go a 1/10 of a percentage point on millage, split the difference?
How much is it?
Well, he just
No, it ain't. I mean, there was this chart at one time that told you
It's
5 point something did this, five,
How much for $100,000 increase?
I don't remember.
A tenth gets us,
There it is, 52,000. So what are we increasing there?
so what he had on the chart was the preliminary, if you stuck with the preliminary 6.28 instead of the 5.99. So it's
like,
0.3 of a percentage point, right?
yeah,
So it'd be 150,000.
So it's a little over a quarter.
yeah.
So you could split the difference, and you could do 6.05, and you could get 75,000 of it that way. I'm just asking it, you know, if no one wants to raise the millage a tenth of a point, then staff won't bring that back, right? Staff will say, well, you got to go up on this one, right?
Okay, on the average home of $10, that's 52,000, 25, and 130.
We're talking about raising the, fees for garbage pickup by $24 a year. Would we raise the other rate by $10 a year?
I mean, generally, I like to do little bites here, little bites there. That way, it's not a big jump anywhere,
Well,
right?
the 1/10 is
1/10
$10.
would be $10.
A while ago,
if you
we
did,
were at almost a third, but which would be,
so if you did 3/10, that'd be $30 a year. If you did 1.5 tenth, it's $15 a year. I don't know what 1.5 tenth is.
1.5 tenths.
all right, go back. So if we raise millage, let me see the other side for the water. What's the 10% on the water tax?
That's 94,000.
Zero,
No,
Right.
it's what?
It's currently zero.
You currently don't levy a water tax.
So put 1/3 on the millage and take off the water tax, see where we're at for making a payment.
Do that.
When you say 1/3, you want,
6.05.
The 1/3? You had a 1/3 for 130-something thousand?
We do a 6.05 of that.
yeah, let me just do some math over here real quick.
I'm sorry, 1/4.
Okay, I got you. Do I leave in MOK or do I take MOK out?
Let's not do any programming things right now. Let's just,
I'm just looking at some numbers, just see how we make payments,
yeah.
that's all.
But my point is, and I think this works better,
Okay.
if we say to staff, you have to go out and find us $100,000 of existing programming that we want to take down, right?
This is worth the exercise to get them closer to the building.
Exactly. And that, we can certainly offer some, I would consider this, I would consider these things.
I
Right.
think the impact fees, if we raise it to a certain level, is gonna take care of a lot of this
lot
for
of this.
itself.
Oh, currently, 1,500, which we're missing the boat right
I know. And
Oh, yeah.
just while Dallas is doing this math, the reason why we're in such good shape when it comes to utilities and we're able, because right now, Newberry could move forward on this regional treatment, on an advanced treatment facility, whether any other city comes on board with us or not. It helps, but we can do that because we've been doing the connection fees. We've set the infrastructure, right? The reason we're struggling right now is because 10 years ago, 20 years ago, we should have had an impact fee on house building, and we didn't, right? I don't want to create, that's when you were on the commission? I was only in elementary school 20 years ago. So I don't want to commission 30 years from now saying, man, I wish they'd started collecting impact fees 30 years ago. We wouldn't be facing these problems. So, and again, I wish we knew what the impact fee rate could be. We wouldn't have to talk about these other things.
Can we guess? Can we kind of get an
We
idea?
did.
That's what
We're
we-
guessing at 1750, right?
Can we guess at a higher? Can we guess higher than 1750? I mean, honestly, can we guess higher than 1750? And just say she comes back, whoever it is we hired to come and do an evaluation, and she gives us a rate of what she thinks the rate should be. Can we go higher than that? Or do we have to stay at that?
Can't go
You don't want to go higher than what they say you can. It's not defensible if you
Go
get sued.
right at or less.
Yeah.
Why is it their authority to tell us what we can charge?
It's similar to your fire assessment. I mean, you can charge whatever you want to charge, but you want to make sure it's defensible because you need to be able to prove to the people charging it that you're not overcharging them. You're not making up numbers.
Okay.
If someone files a lawsuit against you, you can say, no, our costs are going to be this. That's why we're charging you this.
They refer to it as
A
a
nexus.
rational nexus. It has to be a calculable, defensible number.
We have this, we have this, we have this cost, and you're paying it.
So,
Well,
It could be more than
that's
10%.
essentially what they're gonna do, but they're gonna have a
Could be
sheet
more
of
than
paper that says, look, we did that study, and
10% is literally 10% on your money across the board when you talk about a water tax. $100 bill is $10.
$100 water bill.
$100.
The average impact to a customer is $2.70 a month, at 10%.
People in the room are from the commission when we pay that.
Well, then move. Ethiopia's looking for people every day.
I got a small farm down south down here that I'll negotiate.
No, but I mean,
What I would suggest.
what I'm asking is, you're saying it's $2 for the 10% water tax?
$2.70 for the average customer
And
for
we're
water
the only
tax.
city that's not collecting.
Us and High Springs are the only ones.
You're telling me water bills are that low that
10%.
Yeah, people consider, usually when they talk about their bills, because our bills are electric, water,
And
wastewater,
sewer.
solid waste. So, yeah, our average customer pays $27 a month in water.
That water tax bill on the water don't include sewer, right?
Correct.
Correct. You
Correct.
can't
Only
charge
includes water.
tax on.
What
Only
concerns
sewer.
me about the water tax is not the amount, it's just 10%.
Yeah,
People
yeah.
see 10%.
They do,
think, oh
they
my
do.
goodness, 10%.
Well, and Mr. Mayor,
I
I
would
mean,
say. if we
10%
want
sounds
to-
like a lot of money.
Exactly. If we want, if
That's
we're,
why I
if
asked
we're
him.
willing to explore the water tax,
I say take it
I
off.
would say jump in at 4 to 6%, not go the whole 10. Because again, my idea is generally take a little piece here and a little piece there and kind of cobble it together, hoping that we get the big bulk of this out of the impact fees.
That's what I'm.
So at 5% water tax, you got 47. That means that we could handle a debt service, assuming that these assumptions are true, we can handle a debt service of 545, and we only need to get to 425. Or you could do all three segments of 15th, and you're still $15,000 over what you need it to be.
Well, if the impact fees pan out to give us more money than we anticipate, we can always decrease these other
These other things,
things.
right?
And if there's enough, we'll do all three segments.
Yeah,
Correct.
yeah, but, so why are we considering this now when we don't even know what the impact fees are gonna be?
All I'm asking you guys to consider tonight is to tell us what you will be willing to consider.
I think we've
Right.
done that.
If you're willing to consider, I mean, we were against increased millage, now we're saying, okay, well, if it's just a tenth, maybe
Well,
we'll do
I
it,
mean,
right?
we gotta look at the numbers,
Right,
but I'm just,
so,
if we're gonna increase the millage, get rid of the water tax.
well,
Mr.
what
Mayor,
what I'd like to do
You know what I mean?
is, let's figure out, so our bare bones we wanna move forward is, the connector road, City Hall, and segment 3 of the connector for 15. If we can,
Put the infrastructure in.
we'd like to do the whole 15, right?
Yep.
So at this point, I'd say, I think staff, you have enough, you've heard enough feedback to know you can piece together a proposal, and I'd like that proposal to include a reduction of some existing services somewhere, so we can say, we all felt the pain, right? And, the number that I'm using, I'd like impact fees to bear about 80% of this, 75 to 80% of this cost of the debt service. And
It's not enough.
maybe, I don't know.
yeah, Mr. Mayor, yeah, a couple things is, I don't think, a lot of these projects, I don't think you'll be able to pay 100% out of impact fees. The second thing is, a lot of these items, impact fees for one, the water tax for one, takes a lot of time for us to implement. Not a lot of staff time, just the process that'll have to go through. So we're gonna wanna start, the water tax, there's a whole process you have to go through with the Department of Revenue. It takes about 6 months. So we're gonna wanna start that. So in 6 months is probably when you're actually gonna make the decision on how you wanna do this. So we'll have more input, information on impact fees, but we need to start that process now. The solid waste fees, the commission has the authority to increase those at any time it wishes. You just have to go through your ordinance hearing. However, the millage rate has to be voted on in September. as part of your truth and reconciliation, your truth and millage process. So, that will be your first decision, and when we bring back your budget in September, we will start the process on a lot of these other items as well. And hopefully by September, we've at least had that first workshop with your impact fee expert to gather some more information.
We also have a $2 to $3 million CRA that's on the horizon, hopefully, right? And some of these can be paid, some of these projects, or parts of some of these projects can be paid out of there. We also have 2.6 in the COVID relief, ARPA, maybe some of those things. That's why I know we want to get to where the money's coming from, but we have so many things up here that we just don't know yet that's hard to pin down. It makes it impossible for us to pin down when we don't have a goal to hit, right? So I truly appreciate the conversation tonight. I know it's hard to say I want to move forward on these projects when we don't quite know how we're gonna, but we gotta have a goal. We gotta know what we're trying to achieve so that we know what to work for. And what I'm hearing, just to review, again, we want to move forward on the connector here. We want to at least get that third segment for between 337, and we want to continue going to City Hall.
Now, that third segment, is it just gonna be the infrastructure, or are we gonna be doing the paving also?
As what I understand is paving also.
So why not leave the paving off until the developer comes in and just put the infrastructure in first?
Well, the infrastructure will go, and I think that what we're decided is that we would move forward on the paving, and then as soon as we have word of a developer that we say, well, that's on you. Hey, we've done some engineering plans, we'll share that with you, right? But
They're
you're
not
gonna,
doing it in the morning, this could probably come to light before we get to the paving part.
I think so too.
I think.
And again, all of these, if you guys say go tonight, which we're not saying because it's a workshop, we're not, it's not an agenda. You guys say go tonight, we're still 12 to 18 months away from making payments. So if you guys went up on the solid waste, right now, you can go up $1, right, and start banking that money. You can start doing some of these things just to put it aside so that we don't hit people with all this stuff all at one time. It's kind of a gradual increase to move the ball forward.
Mr. Mayor, in your budget that we'll bring forward in September, any of these increases, we can set it up that the commission would see a direct transfer of, we're increasing solid waste by $2, that's $58,000. Here's $58,000 going into a capital improvement fund. So it is banked and it is segregated for these future projects. And by the time we begin the projects, whatever money's in there can be used to buy down the price or to upgrade the projects.
Microphone.
Oh
Microphone.
yeah, you're still red.
When's our contract up with Waste Pro?
9 years.
Oh, so we got quite a while still, okay.
And we get a very good rate from Waste Pro.
What about dual pairs with a toll road?
Yeah, but FDOT would take the money, their road.
Oh, would it?
Mr. Mayor? Just as I'm thinking, I would like to see what we could potentially afford to pay for, primarily just with the impact fees. Because even the nickel and dime stuff from other places, most of this stuff is driven by the growth, and I really hate to put any of that on the back of the citizens or minimize that as much as possible. All of this stuff ultimately needs to get done. I'm not a fan of debt at all, but obviously we can't pay for cash on this, and Mr. Coleman can correct me if I'm wrong, but the only even remotely attractive part of borrowing now is when the inflation hits and we're all behind the 8 ball, we're paying it all back with inflationary dollars that are worth half of what we're borrowing out right now.
And interest rates are low.
The Fed will figure all that out.
Well, I think that's the idea about the bundling. If you bundle these projects together, you get the interest rate for one. You use the impact to pay. Now, there's Dallas is becoming a guru, and I've only had brief conversation, that there's a ton of rules when it comes to impact fees, because every time I ask a question, well, we can't pay with that, right? So there's a whole other workshop, and we're not gonna do a whole workshop on, we'll just do an agenda item,
Will
right?
we have this before we pull the trigger on all this?
Yes.
We're not gonna issue debt before we have a way to pay for it.
We have to have answers on the impact fee, so we know what we're gonna change or not
Absolutely.
change.
We've gotta, it's not even that we gotta start moving the ball, we gotta pick a field to play on, right?
Use it, not against it.
Okay, and I think that, and I've tried to express it here a couple times tonight, same thing. I'd like to see the bulk of this being borne on the back of the impact fees, but we've gotta know what other options are available to us. Cause if you guys just aren't willing, I'm gonna tell staff, don't even bring that back. You heard them, they're not interested in that, it's gonna have to be something else, right? So that's what we need to start whittling this thing for, okay? Any last thoughts from the dais on any of these? Okay.
So when do we know how we can spend the money that we got for the COVID relief? We do know?
Mr. Mayor, yeah, we have a fairly good idea. The Treasury still hasn't issued their final rule, but the federal law that was signed by Congress and the President is pretty clear. The easiest ways to spend it are on water and wastewater infrastructure, followed by economic development projects. Or we do have the ability to spend $600,000 on what they call revenue replacement, which I would refer to as money laundering. But you revenue replace what you lost in COVID, and then you can spend that money on whatever you want. So that'd be about $600,000, and then the other $2 million is restricted
And
to.
we have to spend it at a certain time now. We can't save it.
Yeah, you can't bank it forever. I have to start reporting to the Department of the Treasury in October on how we're planning to spend it. But we're currently waiting for the Department of Emergency Management at the state level to give us contracts. And once we have those contracts in place, they'll give us our first $1.3 million. And next year we'll get our next $1.3 million.
So can that money be used on any of these projects?
Yes, a portion of
So
it.
that-
You can't fund any of these projects entirely out of it.
Right.
But when staff comes back with our recommended funding plan, I would assume we'll recommend you use a portion of your ARPA on some of these.
So that
Would buy this down.
$545,000 would decrease dramatically with,
Between the CRA and the HARPA, I mean, this could be a completely different conversation. Just remember, we also have a companion sewer line that we'd like to run down 26. I think that one would also pay us back dividends in commercial growth, right? I mean, we're focused on these three projects tonight, but we can't lose sight of, we're gonna be back here next week with more workshops with other big ticket items. So I think the CRA and the HARPA, HARPA money, I think those play into this, but I don't think they're, you're not gonna say, well, let's just take all that and fund it, we're done, right? But it should help, right? Bring some of those numbers down,
right?
So
What about a substation on each side? How much that gonna cost?
we're gonna get Duke to pay for that.
We're not gonna own a substation, but never. Our,
Can we get one built, you know?
I think one will get built. I think that it'll either be associated with some solar project because there's so many happening, or that Clay Electric will eventually have enough load in the Jonesville area that they decide to build a substation. Our goal would be to take a feeder position somewhere, or and so we would have funds invested in the feeder to extend it to it, and potentially a transformer investment, but we'll never get into a $4 or $5 million substation, in my opinion. Jamie agrees.
Chief, not to put you on the spot tonight, but how many years do you think Newberry is away from needing another fire station?
It's kind of hard to say. It's going to depend on call load, if you're saying, when do we need one? Call load is not. If you say it's about the level of service, what kind of level of service do we want to provide? We want to put everybody in the city within 5 miles of the fire station. If you're in the municipal limits of the city, we want you within 5
today. But honestly, I think you're probably looking at in the
Current projected call load.
8 to 10 years is probably the conversation, we need to be having a conversation probably in 6 to 7 years, hey, where are we looking at as far as the major call numbers, where's the greater call load at, what's our response time, and then in that 7 to 8 year mark, we need to be saying, hey, this is the place that we determine based on the data that it needs to be.
An impact fee on public safety can absolutely be used to fund a new substation for the fire department, station for the fire department that is needed based on the impact of the growth, right? So there's some rules about how long you can, ahead of time, you can charge an impact fee before you actually need to spend it, but we'll get into all of that stuff.
Chief, we're gonna be able to call you home and get you back over in 10 years.
He's still working
It's
this
all
out here.
for me.
You can argue, I don't think you get you back.
Hopefully Travis will be around so we can, offer the project.
You know, impact fee on parks and rec certainly frees up some general fund dollars, right, to come over to these other things as well. So, any questions or comments from the dais here, from the U-shaped tables? Everybody take a slice of pizza home. Staff, you guys got any last questions, thoughts?
I sure do, Mr. Mayor. We have our next budget on enterprise fund, our next budget workshop on enterprise fund next Tuesday at 6 or 7. And if it stays that night, we'll have a robust presentation for you. But if you said, hey, staff, why don't y'all extend it 1 week, we'd feel a whole lot better if we could push it out 1 week to Tuesday the 10th, I believe it would be. Yeah, Commissioner Martin
Great
wants
idea.
us to move this to the 10th,
idea.
and we're speaking on it. It would help us to do it. We're putting a lot of effort in.
I've got, we've got a planning meeting for the historical marker installation at 6.
7's fine with us. We've put a lot of effort into general fund, and frankly, that's hurt our efforts, my efforts to work on the utility enterprise, and I'd like to have a week and a half to go at it instead of half a week.
In a weekend.
And Mike, what is a reasonable period of time in terms of these projects here that you guys?
That
I just put it in my phone.
Amy's gonna send you a calendar invite.
it's going to be
That's a
mine this
Wednesday.
time. Amy's on vacation next week.
I mean, that would probably, you know, 'cause that
Either
ceremony
10th or 11th.
Is the 11th okay for everybody?
What's the 11th?
It's a Wednesday.
I might be going to that. I got pushed to go down there and be some elected official down in Orlando
Yeah,
for one of the
starts
board
at 12, yeah.
commissioners.
Yeah, that starts on the 12th.
And I think I gotta go.
You'll be packing.
Okay.
That's fine.
Then
Y'all
7
figure
o'clock
it
on,
out.
7 o'clock on the 10th is fine.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll get it moved.
Yeah. Okay. And, Mike, in terms of these 3 projects, and here's staff's best guess at how you pay for it, what you need, because at some point, we've got to bring these things on an agenda item so we can vote on it.
We can bring it, we have the final budget workshop is at the beginning of September, before your first hearing. We can bring it back then before you start voting on things in September.
Okay, everybody catch that?
No, but we'll get it from you.
You'll get it from me later. Okay. Good enough.
So they
Fair
do
enough.
the annual meeting?
No,
on the
Tuesday
10th.
week.
On the
At
10th.
7.
Next Tuesday at 10. I didn't even catch that.
All right, any other comments? That was Mike, is that your only?
That was my only comment. Thank you.
Any,
Oh.
did we miss anything, Jamie, tonight, or Chief, you got anything, Travis? Said you forgot my project? No, anything?
Mr. Mayor, I do want to point out how much I appreciate the fact that our team shows up for all of these and that they're diligent. They follow up the next day with me. They get information. They share based on the things they hear. So I really, really appreciate that you guys put so much effort into these.
Well, we appreciate your input.
Yeah.
I agree.
Next time we gotta put a mic down there, for Jamie.
Absolutely.
Yeah.